Today, the CDC says COVID-19 infections are likely 10 times higher than the official numbers. The Trump administration attempts to overturn Obamacare, and Joe Biden gives a very startling new statistic on the deaths from the coronavirus. We've got a lot coming up, and it starts right now. Welcome to the news and why it matters. I'm Sarah Gonzalez. Happy Friday to everyone. Today is a very special day. And I say that because it is the return of Stu Burguiere and Pat Gray.
Yes.
At one time on the news and why it matters.
Pretty exciting.
I feel like it's been at least 10 years.
Yeah, people have been demanding it. We've had a lot of petitions, change.org.
There were some protests.
There was a protest. I don't know if you saw some. There's some in Minneapolis. And there was a big protest in Minneapolis. They set some things on fire. They said, bring back Pat and Stu, so we came back.
Yeah. Right. So Stu Burguiere of Stu Does America, Pat Gray from Pat Gray Unleashed. It is a pure BlazeTV show today. And Stu, I can't see what your shirt says. Can you show everyone?
It's great. Whatever. It's every review on iTunes just says that. It says 5 stars, and then it's great. Whatever.
Which, by the way, has trickled over to our reviews as well.
A lot of people.
The news. I was going through them, and I'm like, at first, before I knew that was your thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, why are all these people just saying it's great, whatever, on my show? I don't understand.
It's so dismissive.
I had to ask you.
My poor wife is even getting them now. Lisa Page made me do it, and they're just like, that's her little Instagram thing, and people are just like, send her messages and just say it's great, whatever. She's like, what is this?
It's
Why
very
are they
offensive if you don't know what they mean.
That's kind of my thing. Very offensive, and it really kind of just stays offensive usually, unfortunately.
So if you gentlemen have not heard, COVID-19 back in session is at the top of the list. There apparently the news cycle is done for now with Black Lives Matter and the protests. Back to COVID-19. So the CDC director said yesterday that the agency's best estimate right now is that for every coronavirus case that's reported, there are actually 10 other infections. Now, I want to present this information to you with a couple other stories that kind of go along with it. But they said that this assumption comes from large-scale blood tests that have been performed around the country, the results of which have consistently demonstrated that the virus is likely far more widespread than official numbers indicate, which is not really news to me, because all they kept doing was talking about asymptomatic, spread. A lot of people probably have it and don't know that they have it, or had it and didn't know that they had it and spread it, because the majority of us will have it and not show any symptoms. But for some reason, this is now a cause for much concern.
Much concern. I think that's good news.
I agree. Doesn't that mean the death rate is lower?
Yeah, by a lot. You're talking about 25 million people who've had it, most of whom, 23 million of which, don't even know it.
Right.
That's a good thing. Right. What's wrong with that?
Right.
It's amazing. I mean, that shows you can get the disease and it does absolutely nothing to you. That should make it less scary.
For the overwhelming majority of people.
Yeah, overwhelming. I mean, even the ones we know about, the 2.4 million we know about, even for that vast majority, it's not a big deal. There is a fraction of people that have a really tough time with it and worse. But for most of us, I mean, that puts the death rate at what, 0.1, like flu?
It's going to be higher than that, unfortunately.
Will it?
Yeah, because it'll
be pretty low.
It's like it's a mix, right? Like it confirms something that we all kind of knew, right? Which is that we did a monologue on this back in March, right? Donald Trump was getting beat up. Oh, I think it's going to be under 1, and everyone was hammering him because the World Health Organization was saying it was 3.4%. No one ever. I mean, it was not 3.4%. We all knew there was asymptomatic cases, right? This is a mixed news thing for me. Like, it's good that that's confirmed, right? I think, at least they're as close to confirmed as it could be. However, they're saying only 7% of the nation has had it. And 7% is not a lot. There's a lot of growth room there, 93% of the country that hasn't had it.
But why should we trust that? Because they've been wrong about literally everything they go back and forth on.
Well, it's the same. We're talking about the same test, though, right? So you're trusting it's 10 times more, right?
Right.
So that test, that means they said that test is saying it's 7% of the country.
No. I agree. I'm just saying, like, if that many people, if that many more people have had it, couldn't it be more than that, right?
Sure,
because they said it came into the country on a certain date, but then we found out later that it actually came into the country before that.
So this is based on serology test, right? Antibody test, which, by the way, I got my results back on my antibody test today. Never have had COVID.
Bummer.
I'm so annoyed.
Where did you do it? Because I want to do that.
Yeah, I got it at like Quest Diagnostics.
You just go in there and ask for it?
In and out in 5 minutes. Schedule it online, in and out in 5 minutes. The easiest thing in the world. I would seriously encourage anyone to do it because it gives you an idea. If you've had it, you're like a superhero. You can walk around, you can walk through walls, you can fly, nothing can hurt you. If you had it,
you're asking for the immunity papers.
I want the card. I seriously, if I got it positive, I would have printed it out and brought it with me everywhere I went. I have to wear a mask? Check this out, huh? Let me flash my badge. So unfortunately, no. So I think there's positives to it in that, like, it obviously isn't as bad as some of the media was trying to say it was at one point. I'm a little discouraged about it only being 7%. Now, it's a serology test. Like, if they could be wrong, right? But is it 50%? Probably not. Like, the highest we've seen anywhere in America is Manhattan, which was 20%. So it's probably not higher than that, certainly. If it's 7%, the minimum infection fatality ratio would be 0.55. So 0.5
still pretty low.
Well,
when you're talking about shutting down the economy over it, absolutely.
Swine flu is 0.02. So it's 25 times higher, more than that, 27 times higher than swine flu. The typical flu is as high as 0.05 when it comes to that. So you're 11 times worse than the flu and something that's more contagious.
Okay, but let me ask you this.
It's not good.
And we're speaking in general terms, but certainly once you take out the subset of the older population or the population with underlying conditions.
This is the New York approach. Take them all out, and then you don't have to worry about any fatalities anymore. They're all dead. No more infections.
And I'm not. And, no, and please, I'm not saying you're going to get me in trouble. I'm not saying I'm discounting the people who are more likely to have, horrible reactions to this.
Continue to protect them.
Protect them.
Right. Protect them. Yeah. But I'm just saying. But if you take those out of the number that we're talking about, doesn't the death rate then drop substantially?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Sarah has brought more stories about pro-life and saving people on ventilators than literally anyone I've ever met in my life. So there's no question about that. Your credibility is very strong on that one. But when it comes to, you're right. It's hard though when it spreads among the general population. The general population work as nurses. They work in grocery stores. They have parents and grandparents. It's hard to just wall off people over 65. You're right. Like, I think I was doing some of the math today, and the chances of someone in my age group getting COVID and dying is about 0.7%. Now, if you're 80, it's a hell of a lot higher. Right. You're talking about 1 in 4, 1 in 5, right? So it is much, much worse for older people, but it's not nothing for younger people. It is, to me, better that it's spreading among younger people because you start getting a lot of people getting closer and closer to whatever you want to call it, herd immunity. You get that builds, but 7% is nowhere near herd immunity, which means the thing that I'm depressed about is just like I was hoping that this would come out at 20 or 25%, and then we'd be able to say, well, wow, we've really gone a long way. Yeah. And, maybe it's not as bad as we thought. I think this kind of puts us right around the area where we sort of thought it was, where Trump was talking about that initial time, a little bit below 1%. But a little bit below 1% still really sucks, especially with something this contagious. And so we're going to have to do everything we can to do the opposite of everything Andrew Cuomo has done and keep these people, especially older people, protected from this, or we're going to have massive outbreaks again. I just hope that, it's tough because you can't shut down the economy. I think I'm out of step with a lot of conservatives on like how serious some of this is, but I'm not out of step, I don't think, on policy. I mean, you can't shut down the economy eternally. It is not an option.
Well, certainly when you have shut down the economy and you go to reopen it, you have to have the understanding that you're going to have a rise in cases,
yes,
right?
Totally.
Like that should be the expectation that once we are letting people intermingle again, there is going to be a rise of infections, and that we shouldn't freak out about that and shut everything back down because I didn't think that we were like hiding out in our houses to hide from the actual virus itself this entire time.
Also, when you're looting Nike stores with 350 of your closest, most personal friends, and none of you are wearing masks, that's going to spread it as well.
Yeah, I mean, like, you think about the protests are serious. You know, we don't know the effect. There's some people saying that there's not a huge effect because we haven't had a big Minneapolis breakout, but we've had them in California, we've had them in Dallas, we've had them in a lot of other places there were riots and rallies. And I would add on to this, just south of where we are is a country called Mexico, where they have tested at 1/30th the rate of us. 1/30th. That's how many tests they've done. They have a death rate 3 times as high as ours, and we are worried right now in Texas about a 12.7% positivity rate, okay, which is higher. It was at a little under 5 before. They have a 59.8% positivity rate.
Oh.
59.8.
Wow, I hadn't heard that. That's amazing.
That is a horror show. Oof. Like, you know, it is like apocalyptic zone down there. And at some point, if you don't have COVID-19 and you're in Mexico and everything is melting down, where are you going to go? How many people have crossed that border and brought in COVID already into this country? It seems like 2 of the biggest states were out, 3 of the biggest states, Texas, Arizona, California. Now, I wonder if there's any correlation. I'm sure some of it is this, right? It might not all be this, but I mean, Mexico is in serious, serious trouble. Brazil is the only country in the world that's doing worse than Mexico. And those countries, there's several. Ecuador had a really bad outbreak as well. Central America, South America is the epicenter of this right now. And we have a border that we, barely even look at. Even though I know the president has some concerns about it, it's not exactly addressed the way that we would like it. And that's going to be a problem because, especially their economy, how's it going to make it through that?
Yeah.
They don't have to have the hospitals, the treatment that we have. It's going to get ugly.
Well, I want to, you bring up Texas. I want to move to what Governor Abbott announced today because I'm pissed. I don't know if either of you are pissed, but I'm really pissed about it. So he has now, we talked about yesterday, he put a pause. He said, well, the reopening is on pause right now. Well, today he came out and issued an executive order ordering Texas bars to close again. I know, I'm sorry. And restaurants to reduce back to 50% occupancy. He also shut down river rafting trips.
What? I had 4 planned this weekend.
That is my lifeblood. That's all I do.
This bastard.
Wow.
This guy's always been anti-river rafting.
Always.
We've made that point 1,000 times.
If we've said it once,
I will never vote for him again because of the river rafting. Are water parks still open?
That's what I don't like.
I was going to bring my kid this weekend.
Yes, I think they are. I don't see anything about pools or water parks or anything like that, but the river rafting trips, you can't do.
Gone.
You have to get rid of them. That's the first thing to eliminate.
Wow.
And also banned outdoor gatherings. Banned outdoor gatherings of over 100 people, unless local officials approve, which I'm sure if you have a woke reason, you probably get approval for that very easily.
Oh, absolutely. Gosh, if you're just setting some things on fire, everything should be fine.
Yeah. Well, for the right reason.
For the right reasons.
Don't set something on fire to reopen the economy, to be able to feed your kids. But if you set something on fire for, a certain race's lives.
But what bothers me most about that is we're almost to July. Football season starts in August. And will the Dallas Cowboys be playing football at the AT&T Stadium or whatever they call it now? Has it changed again?
I think it's still AT&T, I think.
At Jerry World, will they be playing? Because if you can't have a gathering of 100, you certainly can't have a gathering of 100,000. They were talking about, doing 25% capacity at the football stadiums. Can you even do that? I don't know. If it's continuing to be out of control like this, it probably won't have a football season.
I mean, I will say he did cite the increase in positive cases and the increase in hospitalizations. But if you really dig into the data, I would love to know if you've done this yet, because I know if you haven't, I know that you will. But from what I'm looking at and, the explanation that I'm reading, the hospitalizations, it's like the majority of people are being released with no like long-term horrible consequences. The death rate is still very low. And if you really look at it and then you think to yourself, okay, well, LA County, just said that they saw a surge in their coronavirus cases too, and they had very strict policies this entire time. They stayed shut down for forever. It felt like they have the mask mandates, they have everything, and they're still seeing a surge. So why then do we go back to that when we see that that's not containing their surge either?
Yeah, and that's, I think, taking a step back here for a second and looking at this is that, because the hospitalizations, they obviously lag the cases. It's hard to know. I did see the same thing you were talking about, and I would definitely like to know more about that. But that could take a little bit of time. Really, we were at our low 3 weeks ago when it comes to positive test rate 3 weeks ago. It trickled up a little bit that first week. It started a little bit more significantly, and it's much more significantly in the last week. I mean, 12.7%. He was talking about keeping it under 7 this whole time. We're now well north of what he stated when we started opening up, where he wanted to keep it. The issue with this, of course, is that it spreads fast, and if you start waiting for hospitalizations and deaths, then you're already too far behind. And so I think if you look at him, though, Abbott, and I don't know that he's been perfect on this. I like Abbott generally. I think we all like Abbott generally. You're probably the toughest on him when it comes to this stuff. Yeah. But like when you look at his tone, right? Here's a guy. He was the first governor in America to talk about opening up the economy. He did it before Georgia. Georgia wound up opening up a few days before us, but he was the first one to talk about it and announce a date. He's not a guy who's like, I want to restrict everything. That's not really the way he is. And here he is coming out 2 days ago. He said, hey, we're going to start doing some enforcement and some extra surge testing. Yesterday, it was another restriction. Then today, yesterday was, maybe it was the river rafting. There was something else he did yesterday. And then today was the bars and 50% restaurants. I think he's looking at like, what are the worst things? I think they have been able to track some bar incidents to sort of the large spreading, the super spreader type events that have increased cases. And look, people get drunk and they start not caring about any of these things. They all just run in,
You can do that at a restaurant too.
Right. And so now he's down to 50% there. You can. You're totally right. It doesn't mean you solve it. I think he's trying to walk this line of not letting it get, none of us want it to be Manhattan. None of us want to go back to this life that we had a few months ago. I want it to stay open. I think he's trying to not let it get completely out of control, because once it gets to that point where your hospitals are being overrun, you're way behind it. We have found that, I don't think it's a government action. It's about what people do. We've seen this over and over again, and we saw it this weekend already. Restaurant reservations are dropping like a rock in water right now, because people are like, I don't know if I want to try this right now. Let's see what happens. We are leading the government. And if, the government restrictions are part of this. I know a town right around here, if you remember Colleyville, which was the first town that came out and said, we're going to open up our restaurants. They were the first one basically in America, if I remember right. They did it on their own before the state. They said, look, there's a mask mandate in our county. We're not going to put any resources to enforce it.
Right. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, so this is what's going to happen. They're not going to go around fining people. What they're trying to do is communicate the level of seriousness. They're trying to say, guys, we were okay with this just a couple weeks ago. Remember us? We were the ones that opened everything up. We're getting panicked.
Right.
Be cool. Stay away from each other. Please don't do the whole sneezing in each other's face things that you guys always like to do. Yeah. Try to skip that if you can.
Well, there you have it. Stu Burguiere, Governor Abbott apologist.
Yes, that's me.
We've got more to get into. First, we want to thank our sponsor, Rough Greens. If you are a dog owner, you obviously want the best for your dog. You want your dog to stay healthy. You want your dog to thrive. But if you're feeding them dry dog food, what you probably don't know is that all of the good stuff that's supposed to be in their food that helps them thrive is actually, they kill it all when they sterilize it to give it that long shelf life. So all the nutrients, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, probiotics, omega oils that you're losing when they do that, you can gain back into your food if you use Rough Greens. It's a supplement that you add, you sprinkle it on top of the dog's food. You don't have to replace your dog's food. And it is jam-packed with all of those things that will promote a happy and healthier lifestyle. Plus, your dog is going to love it. My dog loves it. Your dog loves it, I know.
Miles.
And he has like a senior dog.
He's like 114 years old. In dog years, he's older than that. He's actually 700, and those aren't dog years. Miles loves it, and he's a very slow eater. He's one of those dogs that like looks at his food and like examines it for a while before he starts eating. Not when this stuff's on.
That's how my dog is too. Yeah, she was so picky. I mean, it'd be like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm like, why haven't you eaten your breakfast? What is wrong with you? Not anymore. You can take the Rough Greens 14-day Jumpstart Challenge today. It is $14.95. You will see the difference in your dog in 14 days or less. I mean, I'm just saying if you care about your dog, you should probably go to roughgreens.com/blaze. If you don't like your dog and you're a horrible dog owner, then I guess you won't go there.
I heard Greg Abbott doesn't like his dog.
I heard he didn't either.
See?
He's not going to go to Rough Greens, so you need to. It's roughgreens, ruffgreens.com/blaze. Back in a minute. Joe Biden, actually, we're talking about this whole coronavirus thing. He has come out and said he would require face masks nationwide if elected president. So that's something to consider. He would require PPE if elected president. Although I think we need to hear him out on this one, because if the numbers are as staggering as he suggests, he could be onto something. I don't know. Listen to Joe Biden talking about just how many deaths there really are from coronavirus. Watch.
What people drastically underestimate is the impact on the mental health of people who now everything is complicated. Not only is the healthcare piece, but people don't have a job, people don't have anywhere to go, they don't know what they're going to do. And a lot of people you have unnecessarily, now we have over 120 million dead from COVID.
That's too many.
What?
That is too many. He's right about this.
Well, I haven't seen this anywhere.
They really should have.
They've been covering. The conservative media has been covering up.
How do you feel about Greg Abbott now, Sarah? We should close bars. Obviously, 120 million people are dead.
A third of the population.
You go back and you think about when Trump started imposing restrictions, it was too late. But if he would have started like 2 weeks sooner, it might only be 60 or 70 million dead. But he waited too long.
He did.
And now it's 120 million.
He did. I mean, look.
That's a third of the nation.
Yeah.
That's too many people.
And that's almost as many, isn't it, as many gun violence deaths?
Yeah,
yes,
that's true.
Almost.
That was what,
150 million.
150 million.
Yeah.
He has this weird thing where he just puts million behind every number. That's not how numbers work at all. You have to know what the number is. You can't just say million after everything.
That's right.
But apparently that's what he believes. That was a surprising one for me. And I have to say, watching it back really up close, because when we saw this, we did a little bit of this on the radio today, and we showed the clip. The TV was kind of far away. He really does look like Abraham Lincoln.
Doesn't he?
He
in
does.
the video. I mean,
he looks so stupid.
Look at the beard.
Although, okay, so let me ask you, which look is more ridiculous? This one or the one where he just hangs just the one loop?
Yes.
He pulls
both bad
one
looks.
loop off, and it's just the mask hanging from one ear.
Here's the thing. There's never a reason to do either of the things you just discussed. If you need to have a mask on, it needs to be on.
Right.
If you don't need to have the mask on, it doesn't need to be on. Those are the two positions, on and
Also,
off.
As he's touching his nose, by the way.
Oh, it's so bad. I mean, there is never really a reason to have a mask on outside. Unless, with the exception of, you are at a protest and you're trying to burn down a JCPenney, then maybe you want to put it on just to hide your identity. But
You don't want to inhale too much smoke.
That's right. There's another reason. But when you're at something like this is just, it's just posturing, right? These reporters are out there doing these things. There's no evidence to show that if you are in a super tight crowd, like a protest, mask might be a good idea outside. If you were at a packed-in college football game with 100,000 people, maybe you might want to consider that. But really, there's no evidence to show that outdoor transmission is likely in any normal circumstance. It's just posturing when you're wearing a mask outside, or just being ridiculously overly careful. Biden is, I would say, in the vulnerable age, so he should be as careful as he needs to be. But I mean, most of this is just ridiculous.
Well, plus, Pat, I've read so many headlines that are blaming. They're looking under a microscope at Texas, Florida, all of those places. New York somehow completely off the hook. And they're blaming Texas reopening the economy for all of these horrible, scary surges. Yet in New York, they've told their contact tracers not to ask people if they've been to a protest, so that they can then publish the headline that it seems like the protests really have not contributed to the spikes.
It's despicable. And New York had the worst problem in the world.
Right.
In the world. Their death rate was twice the number of the next highest country in the world, which was Belgium.
Mm-hmm. Belgium has, it was 831, I think.
There's over 1,600 per million.
Governor Cuomo was sending people back to nursing homes.
I don't even understand that.
Positive.
I don't begin to, everybody knew that nursing home residents were the most vulnerable among us. Why are you sending sick people to them?
It's the single worst decision, I believe, made in the entire, go back to freaking the Wuhan wet market. The entire time, in the entire world, there's not been a worse decision.
And yet he gets all this credit. He's got an 80% approval rating. How is that possible?
It seems like, I haven't seen that recently. I know that was there. I hope it's falling. Because
I hope so, too.
Look, there is no way to justify what Andrew Cuomo has done. In fact, we were going to do a little Andrew Cuomo on Stu Does America tonight, we've been going through his timeline. We did some in March. We're actually towards the end of March now. And I want this I don't know if anyone even cares. All I know is at the end of the day, I want to have the entire timeline, every single day, what this guy did. So there is a history there, so that people can go back to it when he tries to run for president or whatever in 2024 or whatever. Yeah. Because it's inexplicable that this guy is getting credit. He has done an objectively terrible job, minute by minute. Remember, this is a guy who's now saying like, you shouldn't. He's first of all now banning our visits. Like if we wanted to go to New York right now, we would not be able to because we're in a hot zone and we'd have to quarantine for multiple weeks. He said the same when Rhode Island started to do the same thing to him. He said it was not neighborly. When he went, there's that exactly not neighborly. When he tried to shut down, people say he's like this big shutdown guy. He was not a big shutdown guy. He waited and waited and waited. If he had actually acted like he seems to want to portray that he did, there would be far less deaths in New York. He went very late, and in fact, berated Bill freaking de Blasio for suggesting they would have a shutdown, and 3 days later shut it down. He was that out of touch.
One of his first press conferences that he did, he bragged about this businessman that called him at his office and said, "Bill, I heard you're shutting things down." He's like, "I'm not shutting things down." And he bragged about that for weeks. Yep. And waited until the problem was completely out of control.
Yeah,
he's done the worst job maybe in the world.
Yeah,
maybe in the whole world.
Like you think about where has it been really bad? Italy, right? The death rate in New York is way
beyond.
3 times as bad as it was in Italy. Even if you go to the provinces, almost all the provinces in Italy have a lower death rate than New York as a state, not the city, because the city was obviously worse. I'm saying the whole state, it was worse than any country in the world. The fact that and what's going to be really agonizing, and I hope you can all prepare for this, and everyone in the audience can prepare for this moment. Now, Texas, Florida, Arizona having flare-ups, it's going to get probably worse in our states than it is in New York right now. And so he's going to be seen as a guy who had this big problem and solved it while everyone else is screwing it up. And everyone's going to want to commit suicide. Don't do it. Don't kill yourself over this. I mean, it's going to be tempting, but don't do it.
It's good advice, Stu.
Thank you.
It's good. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I thought you were going a little bit dark, but then you took it back up.
Yeah, you took it right back.
I appreciate it.
I said, don't kill yourself.
I know. All right, we've got more to come. First, we want to thank our sponsor of this segment, ExpressVPN. So in case you guys, maybe you don't know what a VPN is, but it is really important these days to have a VPN, especially a lot of you who are working from home. And you really want a VPN that you can trust because, as it turns out, the virtual private network, the entire reason behind it is because you can't trust like all of the internet service providers who are tracking all of your information. And so you want to make sure you have a reliable provider. Well, we've got that with ExpressVPN. It is the best VPN on the market. They don't log your data. There are a lot of them out there who log your data and they sell your data to ad companies. That's how they make their money. ExpressVPN developed a technology called Trusted Server that makes it impossible for their servers to log any of your info. They can't even do it even if they wanted to, even if they got like really mischievous and they were like, we're going to do it. They couldn't. All right. They are also the fastest. There are a lot of VPNs that slow your connection down. They might make your phone or your computer very sluggish. You can't use it. It's too slow. ExpressVPN always has internet speeds that are blazing fast. You can still stream HD quality videos with zero lag, and you don't have to input or program anything. All you do is fire up the app. It's really simple. Even the ones who can barely use a touchscreen on your iPhone, you can figure out how to use ExpressVPN. It has won many awards. Wired, CNET, The Verge, a bunch of other tech journals rate ExpressVPN the #1 VPN in the world. Protect yourself with ExpressVPN. You can go to expressvpn.com/Y today. You will get an extra 3 months for free on a 1-year package. That is expressvpn.com/Y. expressvpn.com/Y. Those of you who are still waiting for the repeal of Obamacare, well, it probably won't happen. But the Trump administration is trying anyway. On last night, they filed a brief in a highly charged Supreme Court case that has the potential to completely overturn the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. And it's the California versus Texas. It's brought by a group of red states arguing that because Congress took away the penalty associated with the individual mandate, that it's no longer constitutional because, it was all tied to this individual mandate, and whether or not it was a tax was the entire reason that they decided that it was constitutional. Now they're saying that it must not be because the individual mandate is not, quote, severable from the rest of the law. So it was so instrumental to Congress's plan when it was originally passed that the rest of the law needs to be declared invalid by the Supreme Court. I would love it if that would happen. I don't have high hopes, especially with, we're looking at who's going to be on our side? John Roberts?
Yeah. Well, this is the most conservative court. It's almost like Barry Goldwater and Ronald Reagan are the only justices on the bench right now. That's how conservative this court is.
Well, you remember when all of the liberals were literally crying in the streets that once Gorsuch and Kavanaugh took over, they were going to have all of their rights overturned. It was going to be so conservative.
It doesn't look like they're overturning anything we want them to overturn. I wish Roe v. Wade was in jeopardy. I really do. I pray for that to happen. I don't think there's any chance at all they'll overturn Roe v. Wade, even though there's some precedent, even with this ruling they're going to make for the Louisiana abortion clinics, whether or not they have to be within 30 miles of a hospital that the doctor has privileges in. Even that ruling, I think, is in jeopardy, even though they've made other rulings that would lead you to believe that maybe they rule the right way here. I don't think they will.
Yeah.
I don't think they will.
I wouldn't be surprised to them to go cut a little bit on the fringes here and there on life and abortion at some point. And, the same thing here, this is a case that even some conservative analysts don't really think is the best. We fired our best bullets in this particular battle already. There was already cases that absolutely should have overturned this and didn't. This one's more on the weaker side. They keep trying. I don't think there's any chance it's going to happen. Really, this comes down more to, I think, politics. Yeah. It's interesting that, and I think admirable that the Trump administration is still trying this. They obviously believe this is right.
Yeah.
That being said, it's only giving, politics-wise, it's obviously not going to be necessarily helpful, right? It's going to help with the base, and they're going to say, hey, I'm glad he's going for it. But they're going to try to paint him as, in the middle of a pandemic, you're ripping away health insurance, right? Yep. Now, of course, he's not doing that, and he's just being consistent with what he's been saying this entire time.
Right.
And blatantly, it's not constitutional. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But John Roberts doesn't agree with me, and I'm unfortunately not on the Supreme Court at this time.
At this time. But you never know.
Trump can name me at any time.
Yeah, you never know. Well, I found it very interesting yesterday. I saw a clip of Joe Biden who was campaigning on he wants to provide the American people with affordable, quality health care. And I'm like,
who are
are you not one of the people responsible for the literal legislation called the Affordable Care Act? And he actually has the audacity to come out and still campaign on it over a decade later now. We're supposed to trust that this time he's going to do it, Pat.
I don't believe anything he says, obviously, but it's ludicrous. But the guy's out of his noodle anyway. We all know that. He's losing his noodle. And he says a lot of things that, like the 120 million people dead thing. Yeah. He doesn't even know what he's talking about anymore. But it's not surprising at all because Democrats lie about everything. they lie.
Oh, yeah? That's confirmed. Yeah, I mean, look, it's like if President Trump tried to get his border wall built and got a bill passed that did that and added all the security measures that he wanted, and then like 4 years later, he's like, by the way, we got to secure this border. It's crazy. Everyone's crossing the border constantly. It's like, well, wait a minute. Didn't we build that giant wall? And you have like lasers pointed at everybody who walks up next to it?
You told us it would fix everything.
Said it was going to fix it. And wait, you want to do it really makes no sense. And, it shows that there is no level of this, One of the things, and Pat, we did this a zillion times on Pat and Stu and back on the radio show, the clip of them talking about how, Barack Obama saying that he wanted a single payer program, the Trojan horse for the single payer from Tides Foundation. They announced, they all knew that Obamacare was not the end. What they wanted was something much, much more.
And they admitted it.
And they admitted it then, and then they tried to hide it, and we got called the biggest lie of the year for saying that it was true. And then here we are, a few years later, they got their plan. Yep. And they're still trying to change it. And they're like, oh, well, Donald Trump has changed parts of it. Some of that is true, but he's not been able to do much. He did not get rid, but he did lower the minimum, the foundation of this lawsuit is that the fee is now, or the tax is now $0, so it's no longer a tax.
Right.
I mean, there's some validity to it, but the bottom line is we know now where the rulings were. It's not going to get overturned. It's just going to be a political, weapon for the Democrats to fire at Trump.
Yeah. All right. We've got more to come. Back in a minute.
But other than that, the Supreme Court's doing well.
Yeah,
it's doing a great job.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank goodness for Gorsuch, huh?
Before we go, we played the clip of Joe Biden. We're just not making any sort of sense. I would be remiss if we didn't talk about Nancy Pelosi up talking today at a press conference about doing more for George Floyd, talking about police reform. And there's actually someone else, I guess, that's involved in all of this, police reform, police brutality stuff. I've never heard of him. I want to see if you guys have. But here's Nancy Pelosi just today. Watch.
And I'm very proud before the Judiciary Committee that before he testified, he said to me, Madam Speaker, do you think that I can tell George's daughter that his name will be always remembered because you will name the bill for him? And I said, well, I'll recommend that to the Judiciary Committee and to the Congressional Black Caucus who have shaped the bill. But I only will do that if you tell me that this legislation is worthy of George Kirby's name.
George COVID? Is that what she said?
George Kirby.
Oh, Kirby. COVID?
I didn't know. What are the odds that there's another person who's been affected by this with the first name George, but his last name's Kirby now?
That's how commonplace it is. Almost every George has been killed.
I haven't seen the George Kirby story, so I'm looking forward to hearing more about him.
Isn't that typical, though? I mean, she doesn't care enough to know the guy's name.
Doesn't care at all. The Republicans have to name a bill the George Kirby bill. Like I think,
wouldn't that be great?
The police bill should be named the George Kirby bill
in honor of George Kirby, who we've all been.
We don't know his story per se, but I know it's important.
Still, yeah.
I mean, it's just so sad.
Yeah.
Like they're totally using this guy as a prop, and
they don't care at all.
Generally speaking, the left is all for it. They have no idea.
But does the Judiciary Committee?
Yes.
Do they know about George Kirby?
They know about George Kirby, obviously.
I want to know what's in the cup. What's in the cup?
God.
Is it water or is it vodka?
Oh, I think it's something stronger than vodka. There's a lot of clear liquors, and it's something with a higher proof.
Oh,
yeah, we're at the Everclear.
Yeah.
Clearly, she's holding herself up right here. She's got a firm grip on the podium.
It's the only thing that explains her behavior is that she's hammered all the time.
I know.
She has to be hammered all the time. She can never speak. She makes the strangest facial expressions. She can't get through basic words, and her sensibility. I mean, she's lost it. I mean, the thing she did the other day was disgusting when she said,
"Yes,
hey,
have committed murder.
The committed murder of George Floyd." It's like, what are you talking about? Like, she is a cartoon character and is really bad. Yeah. Although George Kirby, maybe that situation is more serious than we realized.
True. We don't know.
I had Adam Carolla on last night, and in his book, he goes through these things and he keeps setting you up. He's like, hey, remember what's the guy, Nicholas Sandmann?
Oh, yeah.
He's like, remember Nicholas Sandmann? Remember that whole story? And then he gives you, well, did you hear about this guy who was 85 years old and was actually not just had someone stand in front of him, like the Native American did in the Sandmann story, but had someone actually assault him. He was a pro-life protester, 85 years old, pushed to the ground, beat to a pulp. Do you remember that guy? And I was like, no. I'm in this industry and I didn't know it. He did it 4 or 5 times to me when I was reading this book, and I'm like, this is unbelievable.
Wow.
How about the white guy who was killed by cops in a totally ridiculous way? Gave several examples of that. Those things happen all the time and we don't notice them. Maybe George Kirby is just a story we missed. I don't know. But it does show that the media just emphasizes these, a few names here and there. And what is every argument? Every time you ask LeBron James if there's a problem with police violence, he'll give you Trayvon Martin, like Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Eric Garner, and because he got through 5 names and he can remember 10 words in a row, we're supposed to be impressed by some national problem, although that's anecdotal.
Yeah.
I love it when they use Trayvon because A, not killed by a police officer, B, not killed by a white guy.
No. But other than that, it's almost a perfect example.
He was a white passing Hispanic, as I have been called many times.
Oh,
wow.
Apparently that counts.
And that's true.
We've
it
only
is.
got a couple minutes left, but I want to get your thoughts on the Dixie Chicks. Well, I should say the group formerly known as the Dixie Chicks. The Dixie Chicks, it's too racist. They've now dropped the Dixie in their name, and now they are just the Chicks. Pat, I think the big takeaway here is that they're still a band.
Yeah, who knew?
Yeah.
I didn't. I was like, oh gosh, they're still making music. Well, that's good.
Early in the 2000s, I used to wake up nightly in a cold sweat thinking, damn it, are they still called the Dixie Chicks?
Right?
It haunted me.
Yeah.
It did. But then I
Finally.
forgot about them because, I don't know, they haven't been mentioned for about 20 years.
Yeah.
But so to find out, first of all, they're still around and they still have Dixie in their name was very disturbing. So thank you for making it the Chicks.
I can't believe they haven't been canceled yet.
Yeah.
However, I do have questions about the Chicks, Stu, because I'm a little offended by that.
Gender-specific?
It is. It's very sexist, I think.
I think it goes deeper, too. I mean, you have the Dixie Chicks, you go to the Chicks. That's sexist, obviously. Then you just have to shorten it to the. Now, it doesn't sound too bad, but the word he is in it. So now you're down to just the letter T.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so you're at the letter T, and I think, it wouldn't be very descriptive. I will say, unless they can come up with the band name of we want to change, build a time machine and take us back to 1999, no one's listening to their music anyway. That's really the only way. The name is not going to make people have it happen. You need to go back in time, I think, for anyone to actually care about the Dixie Chicks. But I'm impressed. I did not know that they were a band either. They have not been relevant. That whole protest against the Iraq War, as relevant as it seems today, really has not caught my attention.
I wonder if that was maybe part of the decision to change their name.
I think part of it too is they had a new lead singer named George Kirby. Yeah.
Oh, that's where George
That's
fits
where
in?
George Kirby.
Okay.
Oh my God! Now it all makes sense.
Now it
Does he identify as a female?
He
And that's
does.
why he's with the Chicks?
He does.
Okay.
We got to take a break.
All right.
Back in a minute.
Oh gosh, George Kirby. Rest in peace.
Is he dead?
Yesterday's poll, do you trust the polls that reporting that Joe Biden is beating President Trump in key battleground states? 91.6% of you said no. That's not surprising.
Do I trust this poll, though? How can I trust this poll?
Well, this poll is way more scientific than the other polls that are showing Biden winning.
I would trust the polls that he's behind in the battleground states. However, we don't have an election right now, so it doesn't really matter.
Right.
We've been dealing with kind of this pandemic thing.
Nobody's thinking
No
about
one's thinking
the
about it.
campaign
He
right
can't
now.
take
Which
it.
is
He could be
kind of
1,000 points ahead. It doesn't matter right now.
It's kind of scary to me, though.
Yeah, a little bit, but-
Because part of me is like, okay, well, we've got time. But then I'm like, it's almost July.
It's only, 4 months or 3 months? So, I mean...
It's insane to think about.
Normally, we'd be in full election mode right now. The issue, I think, though, is that people really haven't considered this yet. Donald Trump has spent basically, 2 speeches going after Joe Biden? At some point, this is going to become the focus. We're going to see debates. People are going to focus on this election eventually, and when they do, that's when you can start to really look at these polls, I think, with seriousness.
Today's poll, with social media censorship ratcheting up, will you make the switch to Parler or stay on Twitter? I feel like this is sponsored by Parler today. Will you switch to Parler, stay on Twitter, or use both? Now, I will say, I am using both right now, and I have gotten special requests for both of you to join Parler.
I'm on Parler.
Are you?
Yes, check it out. At Stu Does America.
Stu Does
on
America.
Parler.
Okay.
Check it out. I mean, it's a good.
Well, Pat is like Mr. Social Media. So.
Yeah,
I thought you were Mr. Twitter.
I am Mr. Twitter, but now
to-
I'm switching to Mr. Parler.
Okay, good.
Yes, and I'll probably have the same activity level on Parler as I have on Twitter.
So you can expect a lot from Pat Gray on Parler. All right, guys, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us. R.I.P. George Kirby.
Kirby.